Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Welcome to episode 11 of Behind the Minbar. I'm here on the set with my dear brother, my friend, esteemed poet in the community, as well as a great director, producer, videographer, my brother Nouri Sardar. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
It's good to have you back here.
It's good to be in Toronto.
Yeah. Your second home. You should come here more often.
Not my second home, no. It's a nice place, but
I mean, third home after
we didn't put
London.
that for.
So it's your second time here. The first time we had you was for the Shatwaniya. Yeah, Hawali Shatwaniya. We had a program here. That was a year and a half ago, before our whole revamp and whatever. So the tech and the place and the whole vibe was completely different. So now you're gonna experience.
No, you guys have been growing, mashallah. A lot of events, mashallah. I've seen a lot of programs, getting a lot of speakers and putting a lot of effort. It's nice.
Alhamdulillah.
Stuff, man.
Alhamdulillah.
It's good to see.
Tawfiq from Al-Alamin. So, Nouri Sardar, people see you online. You have every Muharram or Ramadan, you have like a series that you post. Your poetry is well known. It's recited by like everyone. Like the amount of times this Muharram or last Muharram, or regardless of the reciter that we hear, this Sha'ar al-Adib Nouri Sardar. Like it's actually something. So you're like one of the top English poets in the Shi'i world, or if not the top. I don't know what the rankings are, because it's pretty niche, right?
Yeah, it's very niche.
There's not many. Like it's yourself, Haider Qazzaz. I know writes a bit.
Yeah.
I don't really know anyone else. Although there is Ali Jabr al-Kadhimi, who wrote
old school. Yeah,
he wrote like 3,
before back in the days with
I Wanted
Hassan
You to
Mudaffar.
Stay.
Yeah, and with Basim as well. Yeah, very old school. Yeah,
that was a classic.
yeah.
So yeah, if you know him online, got like 35K followers or
I'm not counting.
something like.
I'll check.
SubhanAllah, humble. But what's your story? So from what I understand, you and we haven't really spoken a lot about this off air, so it's gonna be like the first or second time that I hear the story of what they call you in Arabic, mustabsir, or like
Mustabsir.
someone who has opened his eyes.
Is that
Basically,
is
someone
that the meaning? Open his eyes, Mustabsir.
mustabsir means like he has seen the way, or if I'm
Wow,
not
I didn't know
correct.
that. I just assumed it meant revert.
No, that's the literal meaning is like, because basira is like having that. It's not this. It's not like the
Wow.
physical eyesight. It's that basira is having that like vision. Let's
That's
say.
very interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So mustabsir from that root word I could be incorrect, but it's along those lines.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, someone
Wow.
who is seeing the way has an heightened vision now, something like that. So what is your story of coming to the path of Ahlul Bayt?
So honestly, it took place so early in my life, and I know a lot of people that I meet they're so interested in the story, and I've learned to kind of share it more because I feel like it can help people. But to me, because I became Shia when I was so young, 15. Like for me, I've always been Shia. It wasn't like it doesn't feel like I converted or chose a different path. The short story of it is that I grew up in central London, very diverse place. My best friend was Iraqi and Shia. And growing up, I used to ask him about, like, what do you guys believe? And he used to tell me about the story of Karbala and Imam Ali alayhi salam. And I used to go online and read. Back in those days, there was a lot of forums where Sunnis and Shias would have like debates and stuff. And I would see firsthand like the debates and the proofs that Shias would give. And more importantly, I would also see firsthand how Shias practice. I'd go to, for example, Muharram Majalis sometimes. Dua Kumail I'd go to often as well. Friday prayer. So I'd see them firsthand. So in those days, it wasn't like today. In those days, in Sunni circles, especially in London, more so Salafi Wahhabi circles, because there was a big Salafi Wahhabi influence. Shias were seen as like deceptive and worshipping Imam Ali and all those kind of lies that you hear. They were very prevalent at that time. Now the discourse has become much more, I don't want to say deeper, but it's very different than it was back then. Back then it was just a whole propaganda campaign. So because like there was that perception of Shias that existed that was so prevalent, and I would see Shias firsthand and see that this wasn't really the case. It was much easier for me to put down those kind of lies and that propaganda and really understand who Shias are, what they believe, and going to, for example, to Al-Qamil and seeing it on the screen and seeing what Nouri is saying and how they're worshiping Allah, that was very attractive to me. And I think for me, it was just kind of a case of, you know, seeing all these evidences like for Shia Islam in so many books, seeing all the debates and the arguments, and really feeling like it wasn't something I could really ignore. And alhamdulillah, one day I decided to start following the path of Shia Islam. It wasn't it was a difficult decision, but it was like having to do the right thing sometimes. You just have to, and alhamdulillah, since then, it's the biggest blessing of my life.
Alhamdulillah. And honestly, it's great to hear. I don't really want to be tired of telling the story, but
no, honestly, I've learned to like lean into it more and share it more because it's not it's even though I see it as something very personal to me, but at the same time, it's like if you're given a blessing, if you're given a blessing, it's not, you can't be what's the word? Not stubborn. You can't be stingy with that blessing. You have to share it.
Yeah.
And if people feel like they can benefit from it, exactly. Yeah, people feel they can benefit from it. If they, again, because to me, I've always been Shia. It doesn't seem like that big of a not that big of a change, but it's not something I think about a lot. I probably should think about it more. But if it benefits people and people see that and they're inspired by it, and anything that brings people to a path of Ahlul
definitely. Even myself, as someone who's one Shia, I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. It's always interesting, and also like we didn't get that chance to have that perspective of you finding your way. Like you're born into it. You can say you're lucky.
Yeah.
And
but for someone to actually have that thought, have that sit down, observe, and actually make that change themselves, it's definitely more difficult. And then it also teaches us to we see what you saw, what attracted you. We look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah,
kinda.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Now you're, like we said, you're a well-known poet, and your poetry is also amazing. By the way, just
thank you, bro.
Why we invited you here.
I appreciate it.
Also, when you recite and when you are on the when they recite for you on the minbar, like liman sha'ar Nouri Sardar, it's really good. And I observed actually firsthand. It's like Rashid was next to me in the car last year, and we're driving here, and he's like, Nouri, I need a couple of lines for this
on the way.
on the way, he's like, I need a couple of lines, and you're just on it. I don't know how your brain is wired. You just hear the qasida in Arabic, and you're also a fan of it, and you can just come up with like something that goes along with the theme, that rhymes, it keeps the rhythm, like everything, and it's not easy to match poetry stanzas into this qasida. So mashallah, that's a talent, it's a blessing.
Alhamdulillah, honestly, for me, it's something that I've worked on for a long time. I've done it for a long time. So at a certain point, it just becomes like second nature. It's like with anything else. If you're skilled at something, I'm sure you have many skills in your life. I'm not sure what they are, but I'm sure you have many. With anything, like for example, a speaker who's been giving lectures for 10 years, you invite him to speak, he knows what to do.
Yeah.
He knows his starting point. He knows how to find his topic. He knows how to gauge his crowd. He knows what to speak about. He can create a lecture. It's the same thing for me. So for me, if someone requests a qasida from me, the first thing I think is, okay, tune. Second thing I think is, okay, what's the idea? What's the chorus? Okay, from the chorus comes the abiyat. I've built like a process for myself where I can do it. And it comes naturally to me, but that's also, I think, just after doing it for such a long time and continuously trying to write and trying to improve. And alhamdulillah, I think one part of it is the hard work and the mindset, but the other part of it, and I would say 60, even maybe 70% of it, is the tawfiq that Allah gives you, because there's a lot of poets out there, better poets than me, more sincere than me, but it's Allah who decides whose poetry goes far. It's Allah decides whose work goes far. You see names, speakers, reciters, poets, anyone with our community, and just generally, you see names that one day they're the biggest name ever, the next day they disappear from the conversation, and that can be either because Allah wants to punish them and bring them down, or perhaps Allah is like, okay, now you're coming down and bringing someone else up. Or the way I see it is that Imam Hussein himself is doing this. He's saying, okay, this reciter's going here. This reciter's reciting here. Yeah, there's a really beautiful clip I always think about, which is Mullah Hussein Zaghir from Karbala. Someone asked him, he's like, how do you decide where to recite in Muharram? And he said something very nice. He said, in my opinion, I believe that before Muharram comes, Imam Hussein brings his khuddam, metaphorically or metaphysically, and he points. He says, you're going to go here, you're going here, you're reciting here. And he goes, the reason I believe that is because sometimes I intend to recite somewhere, but things change and I end up reciting somewhere else. And I can say that as well. There's many times where, for example, I don't know where I'm going to be in Muharram. I might be reciting at Majlis. I might be going somewhere to film, for example. And I've realized that it's always, I believe, the hand of Imam Hussein himself who's deciding what is best for his mission. If we are to consider ourselves sincere servants of Abdullah, we listen to our master. And our master speaks to us through what Allah plans, through what Allah has written for us. So I think thinking about it that way is also very important. Understanding that, we try our best, we work our hardest, and it's always about how we utilize where we are and what we're given. If I have a talent which is to write, for example, how am I using that talent? Am I using it the best way possible? Where does wisdom come into it? When I'm thinking about what to write, why am I writing it? How am I sharing it? Where is that work going? Any craft that you do, I think wisdom is a big part of it. Which is why I was having a conversation with someone on the way here about, you're a big fan of Mullah Basim. We share that affinity for Amr Mullah Basim, and I think even though I'm not a reciter, one thing I really learned from him is having that wisdom, which I think he has. He has many strengths, but that ahead of other reciters is one of his biggest strengths, because he knows not just that he should innovate, but how to innovate, why to innovate that way, what to recite, why to recite it, what can I do differently, what can I do that's new, but not how can I push the bow, but also not push people away. I think wisdom is a big deal, and understanding where Allah's placed you and how you can utilize what you've been given to do the best that you can. And I think it's not just about poetry or khidmah, it's to do with anything in life, understanding, figuring out, it takes a lot of reflection, a lot of thought, but I think that's very important. Having the wisdom to know what to do and when to do it and how to do it is very important. And, again, like, I remember, like I'll share this with you. I recited in Muharram, not this Muharram, the past Muharram, but the year before that, I was in Vancouver reciting. And then I went to Arba'in to recite. And I was, really engaged with reciting, and I just, wanted to recite more. And I remember from Arba'in until this Arba'in, so about a year, I barely recited anywhere. I think just once for Milad Nabi, and maybe 2-3 times only the whole year, which is unheard of for me. Mm-hmm. But in that year, what I did do was work very hard on my craft, my cinematography craft, my filmmaking craft. And in Muharram, I was in Karbala filming and working on cinematography. So for me, it was like Imam Hussein was telling me, okay, I need you to step aside from the poetry for a bit, from reciting, and I want you to work hard on your filmmaking craft because I need you there right now. And then later on, I'll bring you back. Point being, again, for me, it's him that pushes us where he wants us to be. And I'm really a big believer in that. And that doesn't come from, just me thinking about it and reflecting on it. That really comes from a lot of experience, things I've seen, things I've felt, things that have happened to me that have, again, like I'm sure you've seen in life that things happen that you don't expect. Plans change. Mm-hmm. And for me, that really is Imam pushing in the right way. Through the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who's also pushing in the right way as well.
So you just mentioned your filmmaking career, and that must be a blessing, honestly, to be in Karbala and Muharram and have a chance to film. And just like the border guard said, you are a jack of all trades, a poet, filmmaker, selling Islamic rings as well. But for filmmaking, actually, first let's ask about the poetry. When did you first start that? And how, and then we'll get back into the film.
So for me, I grew up listening. Excuse me. I grew up listening to when I first became Shia. I started listening a lot to Latmiyas and especially Mullah Basim.
Oh, and just an aside, like you said, I'm a Basim fan. We share that. We've had many conversations about this, but I actually didn't think I would be bested by someone in terms of being like an encyclopedia when it comes to something. He can listen to a qasida from 20 years ago. Tell you on which night in Muharram, in which year this was recited, at which place. And that's a skill, like, I don't have that. Like, and I consider myself the biggest Basim fan, but now I'm the second, apparently. Because he's truly an encyclopedia when it comes to Mullah Basim. He's like, yeah, that was 2006, Kuwait, 97, yeah, for sure. Like,
no, I have a collection of like over 1,000 Basim Latmiyas from before YouTube days. So from his early days up till about 2000 and let's say 12, 13, I just
Oh.
have literally like 1,000
Damn,
tomatoes on my.
I'm only at 906.
This is before BK stuff days, by the way, before
Yeah.
YouTube days. So this is like stuff that you have to scour the internet for. Go to
Yeah,
shiavoice.com and find them. It's honestly a big inspiration from my writing as well, because you have that playing in your mind all the time. When you hear what reciters are reciting, when you hear the kind of language they're using, what they're reciting about, that is also one big inspiration for my own poetry as well. Because when I want to write a poem, my first kind of, subconsciously is like, okay, how do I, not the language that I use, but what's the accent that I'm writing in? Like, what kind of flow is this qasida having? And that flow comes a lot, I would say, mostly from the stuff that I hear reciters reciting as well. So that's also actually a big part of me writing as well. So when I first became Shia, I started listening to Latmiyas here and there, but my Arabic was very bad, like really, really bad, and I really wanted to find a way to express myself. But obviously I couldn't write Arabic, so what I started to do was write English. And in those days we had online forums. There was a youth forum called CYC Online, where a few of us, of my age group were on that forum and just, posting and sharing and stuff. And I started just sharing the poetry on there. And it was terrible. It's not something I'll share now, but people encouraged me. They're like, it's very beautiful, carry on. So I started, sharing more and more poetry, and then eventually that came to writing qasaid. Met Ali, who started reciting as well.
Yeah.
I published my poetry in books, started reciting on the Minbar as well. So alhamdulillah, it's honestly, it was just like one thing led to another. Dominoes started falling. Tawfiq was growing and growing, growing. And honestly, I'm very blessed and very lucky, and alhamdulillah. And for me, I always say that it's not that I want to write. For me, it's that I have to write. Like it's just it's the way that I have either the way I'm wired or the way I've taught myself to express myself is through poetry. If I'm feeling something, even if it's not necessarily directed at Ahl Bayt specifically, I always want to share it in a poetic way, and that could be either poetry or through filmmaking. I think both are very intertwined. Both are an art that you express. They look very different, but they come from the same place.
Comes from a vision, a form of expression.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think all artists are like that. They have to they look at the world very differently, I think, and they need to process everything they feel through the form of art.
Some form of creative output.
Exactly, yeah, and that can be everything you go through in life, positive and negative, but also the love of the Ahl Bayt itself. It's such a big thing. It's so hard to fathom, right? And we're very lucky in that we can take that love and kind of translate it into this, which is a big blessing, alhamdulillah.
Santum. Now, you were just discussing this point about listening to what poets are saying, the words they use, and the reciters. Do you notice a difference? And as a poet, do you notice a difference between, the qasaid of old, that 1,000, qasida repository you have of Mullah Basim, versus the current qasaid that are coming out recently? Like, for myself, when I listen to those old classics, I find that the words, even the Arabic used, is much higher level,
Heavier,
and it carries much more meaning to it.
Yeah.
Like, where I actually have to think and I process. And I'm like, I have to actually, to put it plainly, I actually have to deep it. Like, that the meaning there's a lot to comprehend, to unpack, basically. Whereas today, like, there's qasaid that are talking about, the eyes of Al-Abbas alayhi salam, or, his hair coming down on his head, on his forehead, and how beautiful he was. And while that's true and everything is, it's nice, but there's not that deeper meaning, the understanding, because like Ahlul Bayt aren't just pretty people, and that's it, there's a lot more there.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your thoughts.
I mean, so I don't listen to a lot of reciters outside of, I'd say Mullah Abbas is probably the main person I listen to. I think these days, because you're reciting from so many poets, you see there's a lot more creative differences between the poets. But I'd say that I think it's also about the culture and the way the culture is moving forward. If you look at the way, for example, majalis are conducted today, especially in Iraq, Iraqis generally, they're very, not just poetic, but they're very, I don't know if the word is revolutionary, but they're, they have like hosat and stuff. I don't know what the right word is, but like they're very, there's a word for this which is escaping me. But it's basically like, it's not just that you're reciting a latmiyya anymore, but you're chanting a slogan almost. A radda.
Yeah, it's
You know?
it's very cultural.
Yeah, it's cultural, it's revolutionary. Like you're making a point. You're not just
Yeah.
like painting a picture anymore. You're making a point. You're there, for example, when you're in the measures, for example, and you're doing latam, you're not just
Yeah,
taking in the poetry always. Sometimes you're just also making a point,
like a statement.
a statement. Ahsan, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And
They
I
call
think
them like sha'bi or
yeah,
thawri
that's what it is.
qasaid.
Yeah, and I think because of the way the culture has changed, the poetry also changes with it. And I think when Basim started reciting from say Abdul Khalik, for example, his words, he's more of a I'm gonna give you lines that are
Yeah.
crazy, kind of like
Yeah.
that line, oh my god, this line. It's more like
Yeah.
that, and I think that influences the next poet, and the next poet, and the next poet. You still
Exactly.
have some poets that are very I'm not saying Abdul Khalik's not deep, but you have a lot of poets who write very differently, still like romantically. Ahmed Dahabi, for example.
Yes.
I really like Adil Ashkenani, Ali Sagai. I think they're more like
Ali Sagai.
they're more like old school, like
Yeah.
Jabber in the way they kind of write. And
I
think,
really like Ali Sagai. I think he's one of the better ones.
oh,
currently,
100%. Yeah.
Like,
I really like him too. And I think so I think that's what it is. It's more, I don't want to use the word educated, but those guys
Yeah.
come from Kuwait, so they have a very different mindset
exactly.
than those that kind of raised in Iraq, I would say.
In Iraq,
But you
yeah.
also have a lot of Fusha that Basim was saying, like
Ali
Habib, the Lebanese guys.
Yeah.
You have that too, and I think it's a nice mix that you get. But again, this is very specific to Basim, very specific to Iraq. And I think the one thing I can say is that it's very hard to control culture. You can't control it. Culture is
Yeah.
like a flow of people. You can't
Especially in Iraq, like when a trend takes place. it
yeah,
just
you can't
goes
take it
across.
and push it back.
Yeah.
But I would say again, I think it comes back to wisdom. So again, what you're reciting, why you're reciting it, what's the point? Are you trying to get views? Are you trying to stand out?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with standing out, but how are you going to stand out? Yeah, I think having that wisdom to pick what to recite, how to recite it, what kind of tune are you using, who you're reciting for, where you're reciting.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. I think that's what so many reciters
some of
not
it's
lack,
missing.
but some are much better than others.
Oh yeah.
I think Basim's very good at that. I say Janami's very good at that too. Ali Said Al-Wa'ili, I really this year. I really like him as a reciter for this reason as well, is because when he's reciting, you kind of see not just that he's worked hard on himself, but that he's choosing what to recite, how to recite it, the
Mhm.
tune, everything, the whole thing coming together.
Yeah.
Having that kind of taking a moment and thinking, okay, being very intentional about what you're doing. It's wisdom, bro.
Yeah.
It's wisdom. And I think wisdom is a key component that all of us must have, and something we should strive to do. I mean, there's a lot of things even I can do, which can either get likes or get shares or, be controversial, be impactful.
That doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
not saying those things are wrong necessarily, but I'm saying what is the
Goal.
what is your goal and what's the best way to get there? There's a beautiful hadith by Imam Ali that I reread recently, which is that wisdom is to put everything in its correct place. Sometimes you can put things in the wrong place, and when that happens, you get things like what you were describing, where it's like the
Yeah.
poetry is like, no,
Yeah.
doesn't. I don't understand the point of this kind of thing. I think that's
Exactly.
important.
Sent him. Now we're gonna double back to the filmmaking. Even though I could go on about this right now, like Ali Sagai, I was just listening to. I've listened to his Mawlid for Eid al-Ghadir.
What's your okay? What's
Like
your,
the Halabik one that he released just for Eid al-Ghadir. Halabik Shayakhin al-Kil.
the recent one, yeah.
I listened to that, I think, 30 times
Wow.
in the last week or two.
Wow.
Like I listened to it 4 or 5 times a day, and then like. It's
What's
just
your
crazy.
top 5 Mullah Basim qasaid?
Oh man.
No in order. Just give me your top 5.
Okay, that makes it easier. I can give you, but I'm gonna remove some things like Ya Mahl al Wida'. Like I can't put it as because that's just like that's one of the classics for everyone.
Yeah, okay, specific to Mullah Basim. So
Yes.
his own.
Yeah.
His own stuff.
Okay, like I can't say Mayamoon or like Ya Mahl al Wida' because those are just classic. They top anything.
Yeah.
At all times. But like Lil Abbas is one of my favorite.
Yeah.
That one is just too good. Al-Alam al-Ga' Ya Haydar, I really like it.
You're going through my list, by the way.
Al-Goomer Weeha is just something that like I can
These are
listen
old
to.
school stuff. I didn't know you know this stuff.
Yeah,
old school
no.
ones.
And then Salla Alayka Malik al-Sama. So those are the I can name like 5 really old ones that I like and 5 new ones that I like.
Okay,
but
5 new ones.
Now 5 new ones. New ones. So I'd say Ruhi. I think that was actually the start. Ruhi is like the
Yeah.
start of the change from the
Rohi, by the way, when it came out, I don't know if you remember, that was
that took.
that
I
qasida
was
flew.
I was in Iraq the winter after it came out.
That took over the country.
In 2012.
Yeah.
And every city I went to, whether from Kadmiya, it was playing in every.
Yeah.
You'd walk down like a guy selling dahin, he's
Yeah.
playing Ruhi.
Yeah,
A guy's a shop selling sajadas, he's playing Ruhi.
yeah,
You walk down to the Imam in Kadmiya, same thing. Karbala, same thing. Najaf, same thing.
yeah.
So that it really took it by storm. Iraq by storm. Ruhi
Yeah.
was different. So that's like one of my favorites. A few others from the new ones. There's like some slept on qasaid. Like I really like Ya Mushaf Ma'sati.
Oh, the poetry,
By
that
Adil
is, the
Ashkenazi.
poetry that is beautiful, man.
Like it's so slept on.
Yeah. The
Now
poetry is
I think it hit like 5 million views.
beautiful.
But there was a time when it first came out, like first year, it wasn't even a million.
That's a
views.
heavy poem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good.
So it's basically it looks at Imam Hussein through every surah of the Quran.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
It's a qasida and every line basically contains a surah or a line from a surah.
See, that is hard work,
That
by the way.
paints-
That's hard work
Yeah,
and
it
research.
paints a picture of
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one is, of course, like you said, Adil Ashkenazi. Like he puts in the work to write that.
Yeah.
What else from the new ones?
I
There's
have
so many
I have
favorites.
Kilma Ashufak. Yeah, that one for me.
I don't think
That's-
it's one of my favorites.
No,
I
that,
like
that,
it.
that
but
for
it's
me is
not-
up there. That's I like when I listen to that, like, so when I hear it, I'm like, this thing is flawless. There's nothing about it that's like, it's just perfect from every angle.
Yeah.
You said Jilni.
You said Jinni. I
Arba'in.
love. You said Jinni and Tuzuruni. That pair.
No, but I
love
think
them.
you said Jinni more so than Tuzuni. You said Jinni for me is like the words in it. I think maybe I focus a lot on the words, but the words in you said Jinni are really like wow.
Yeah.
They really they really what's it called. And he
said Jinni
he recited
Tuzuni,
one
I
from
love
last year which I really like for Muslim, which was Karbala Qbilnini, I think.
Let me think.
I forgot how it goes. I'm just scared to recite it because my voice is so bad.
Yeah.
But it's for Muslim al-Aqil. The poetry in that is unbelievable. And I think it's one of his best recitations. It's so impactful. It's so
Another
beautiful.
slept on one is Night 10 from 2 years ago, called Hadithun Musnadun.
I haven't heard it probably,
It's like
Yeah, I've seen it on
it's
YouTube.
also
I always
really
scroll
good.
past
It's
it.
Ali Sayyid al-Amili. So it's Fusha. It's really nice. It's talking. I know it's Milad al-Nabi and we're green here, but this one is
If you
it's-
ever wanted to hear us discuss Basim Qasaid for 3 hours, welcome to this podcast.
it's basically the head of the Imam speaking to the body
Mm.
and saying goodbye to each other.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And like each one of them is the head is speaking to the body speaks to the head, and that
Wow.
they'll meet again in Arba'in.
Subhanallah, that's beautiful.
So that one is something else. There's so many more. I don't want to.
He's really
Take too long.
an ocean of like you can't
Yeah.
recently I tried to sit down and basically go through your whole YouTube page and update my collection.
Yeah.
This is gonna take me months to go through
It
every
actually-
single.
It actually took
like,
me months.
I wanted to take every single qasida, put it in the playlist so I know exactly which season it is, like Fatima, Muharram, whatever, and then kind of like have this whole database. But it's just too much. Like I remember one year I counted this before he had his YouTube channel. I counted how many days he recited in the year. For Wafat al-Banin, he recited like 10 nights in different places. Fatimiyya like a good 30 nights. Muharram, I think he recited literally like from first until the end of Safar, until Wafat al-Askari. So he has, and every night he's reciting a new muqaddama, a new ra'isiyya qasida, and a nazla. Every
And
single
like
night.
most of them are getting uploaded.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like, you know,
It's hard to keep up.
yeah, and a lot of this stuff is hard to find. Like he has a really nice one that he writes for Fatima al-Banin, Iqsid Malhoof. I don't know if you heard it. It's an
Not
old
sure.
school. It's an old school tune. At least the guy wrote it, but it's beautiful. He read it in the shrine of Imam Hussein, and it's about basically turning to al-Banin when you have a hajj. I'll send it to you afterwards. But this
Okay.
stuff is like he has this stuff which is like it's hard to find because it's not in his channel,
Yeah.
and it's like you got to search it and find like a random YouTube channel that has it online, and there's a lot of stuff that's just really just beautiful and
Yeah.
you
One
know.
of my favorite Benin ones is Yal Benin al Arba'a. Like that was.
For me, it's Ilahi.
Ilahi. Okay.
Ilahi.
So another slept on one. No one knows about
That's
Ilahi.
not so Ilahi when it came out was the qasida.
Yeah, but I feel like most people have like kind of forgotten about it now.
I mean, most people meet Basim these days,
You
the
know.
past 3-4 years, 5, 6, even 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid qasida. Okay, what about for the Mawlid? Your favorite
I
Basim
don't,
was
I
for
don't
the
listen to
Mawlid?
Mawlid a lot, so
Oh, damn.
sorry.
So I have one that I was just listening to, and it's an old school one. It's Nida'un.
Yes, I was
عند
just thinking
ذي
about
العرش
that. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nida'un عند
Yeah, that's a really
ذي
nice.
العرش. Muhammad, ya Muhammad.
It's nice because it's like you can hear it. It sounds
Yeah.
weird to say you can hear it in Sunni circles as well, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's very like in that kind of vibe. It's really nice.
yeah. I love that one. Of course, Salawatun is probably the OG.
Yeah.
But he hasn't really released anything for the Mawlid of the Prophet since like Nabiyuna Muhammad.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a
That's
while.
old qasida as well. It's not new.
It's 2014, I believe.
No, it's old. I think. I think it's an old qasida he re-released.
He re-released it last year, but it's from.
Oh, okay, fine.
I believe it's from the album.
No, I think it's.
2014. It's older than the 2014.
I think it's old, bro. I think I used to hear it back in the days. I'm pretty
maybe
sure.
it's 20.
Maybe I'm mistaken.
You know
I'm
what?
not
Yeah,
sure.
no, you're right. I think it's older. It's probably like 2010,
Okay.
something like that. But yeah, that's like that's been the only like current one.
Yeah. Love
Okay.
side.
Yeah, let's get to the filmmaking and how you got into that. When did that start?
So when I left school and the first thing I did, and I used to love media studies in school. So just to give you like a different perspective into my upbringing is that I was obsessed with films, and I'm still obsessed with films. Like that's like my hobby.
Like Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm obsessed with watching films. Obsessed with. I'm definitely a cinephile, 100%. Like I grew up like with a whole wall of just recorded VHS tapes that I would record from TV whenever films that I like would come on.
And were you like observant of like, wow, I like how the shot was
Very,
filmed? Like, okay.
very, but without realizing till I got older, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I realized that there's two kind of people. There's two kinds of people that watch movies, and this is a very it's a psychological thing. The first kind of person that watches a movie like takes it as is, kind of like the story and whatnot, and has a good time, and that's it. The second kind of person, they register the visuals of the movie as part of the story. So I'm in the second camp, and basically that is what cinematographers do. They have that kind of eye for it, where they use visuals to tell a story as well. It's not just what's being said on screen, but it's also what the story is insinuating to you.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of art as well, even with poetry. Like it's not just about what's overt. It's not just about what's being said to you and told to you. It's also about what's being implied to you.
Yeah.
I think this is what's nice about old school kind of poetry. Like it implies a lot.
Yeah.
You read between the lines. Same thing with film.
It
And
wants you to kind of do the work to read between the lines and unpack it and have it.
It's more about how does it impact you. And I think because I have that kind of mindset, what was nice with me growing up and watching this stuff was that as a Muslim who was very spiritual, I would take something from these movies that perhaps the filmmaker might not have even intended to be given.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like I could find spirituality in
certain themes.
Yeah, in themes, in obviously it's not every single movie because we know Hollywood is a very disgusting entity, unfortunately.
Of course.
And that's the sad thing about it. Is like you can see, you can gain a lot from it, but you're gaining it from a very dirty plate, unfortunately, and that's just the reality of it. But again, like that inspired me and pushed me toward media studies. When I left school, I went to work at LDTV for 7 years, which at its peak, people might not even remember now. And LDTV at one time was literally converting villages in Africa to Shia Islam.
How long ago? What time was
This was 2010.
So like early 2010s.
I did volunteer work from 2009, 2010 to 2017. I worked for 7 years. And at its peak, bro, it was really something else. It was really a movement. Like what we did with what we had was really unheard of. Like our income in terms of like the channel itself, compared to what we were spending, not just compared to what we were spending, but also compared to what we were churning out in terms of shows and documentaries, all this kind of stuff. It really was something else. And the blessed impact it had, the amount of people it inspired, the amount of people pushed towards Shia Islam was truly incredible at the time. And then towards 2017, I kind of got, not disenfranchised, but like kind of like I've been doing it for so long, I wanted to try something else.
Yeah.
So I went to work for the platform called the Muslim Vibe. Heard of them?
Yes.
Yes. So I worked for them as first year as a senior editor, and then as a video producer for like 5 years. Then after that, I transitioned into a full-time freelancer. So now I'm just full-time freelance, contract to contract, different projects. It's a mix of commercial work and also Islamic work as well. So it's like a mix of those two things. And alhamdulillah, I'm very blessed that I get to do what I love for a living. It's not perfect, but like for me, it's like there's nothing more I love than setting up a shot or telling a story or creating a documentary or I wouldn't call myself a filmmaker in the traditional sense of making films, because I haven't actually made narrative films, but in the idea of filmmaking, making a commercial or directing a documentary slash filming it, producing it, it's a big blessing, alhamdulillah. And yeah, that's basically what I do. And I put a post on Instagram recently, I think 2 weeks ago, I've seen it, where I spoke about how I've always wanted people to know that side of me as much as they do the poetry side of me. I'm very blessed that people know me for my poetry. The one question I always get, which I always
got recognized for.
yeah. But the one question I always get, which fascinates me, is like, oh, do you do this full time, like poetry? I was like, how would that even look? Like, how does anyone be a poet full time? It's such a strange thing. So I'm always like, this is also what I do. I do video production, and a big part of me was always like, this is my personal thing. My public side of me is me reciting my poetry. But recently, I'm like, you know what? I want to be me publicly. I want to be as authentic to myself as I can be, and a lot of that is me telling people what I do and reminding people what I do, and showing off the work that I do, and really owning that narrative of who I am. I think finding out who we are is always the biggest philosophical journeys that we take in life, and for me, like, a big part of that is, this is who I am. I also love to share. I love to share the work that I do, because in that work is kind of who I am. So for me, alhamdulillah, I've learned much more into discussing openly, cinematography techniques, and speaking about the work that I do, and how to light a shot, and how to think about filmmaking and stuff like that. And alhamdulillah, even that, it's having its own kind of impact I've seen on others.
No, of course, even on us. Like, we follow you, and we see your tips and your suggestions and the stuff you do. And even now, just before we started filming this, this is the first time you come to the studio since we've made it. So I got his help, with the lighting and with the seating and just his advice in general. And then on tips on some things to change. So I appreciate that. And I also know how dedicated you are to your craft. Last year you asked me, like, I need a place for
I used it
for
for
a
filming,
documentary.
Was
that for...
And you saw firsthand what it takes.
Yeah, and I saw you bring carts of gear and
I think
it up.
I think it's so interesting, because like, people don't, like, someone who's not kind of in that world doesn't understand what it takes to kind of make something, like, I don't use the word good, but make something, like, let's use the word intentionally. Like, approaching something as a cinematographer as opposed to a videographer, I think, even though they're very similar terms, it's a very different mindset. And for me, it's like I said, I've got a big love of movie making. I can't make movies because it's way out of my reach, because of the kind of budgets those guys work with. But I try to kind of do what I can with the skills that I have, with what's accessible to me, to try and do things as intentionally as possible. If I'm going to film an interview, for example, how would Netflix set up that interview? You know what I mean? Like how would it be shot? From a professional's point of view, from a cinematic point of view. So I've had many times that, for example, especially we're working with, I've realized that in our communities, we don't, based on my experience, our communities don't really not appreciate, but I'll use the word appreciate as well, but also like understand what it takes to make something. Cinematic is a very broad term, but let's use the word cinematic. Something cinematic, something professionally done. We don't have that mindset. We don't understand what it takes. Like in the past, for example, I've reached out to people. Hey, I need to shoot an interview on this day, whatever. Like, just come after the program and set up your camera. Like, no, we need the place closed. I need to come a day before. I need to do a recce. I need a 3 hours set up. I need the person sat down. Like that's what it actually takes, kind of thing. And I think until you see it, until you see me coming in with that cart full of lights and stuff, and spending 3 hours just trying to find the right shot, then you don't understand what it takes. And I think the catch-22 of that, the downside of that, is unfortunately in our community we do not value this work. We do not value this work. And I'm telling you that as someone who's and I'm very lucky, because I do commercial work as well alongside design work. But I unfortunately, whenever I don't want to be negative, but whenever I explore doing work within the community, then poetry is one thing, but specifically filmmaking work, I've realized our community doesn't value it as much as they should, in my opinion. For me, there is nothing more impactful than storytelling. Nothing. And the proof of that is how much effort Hollywood puts into what they produce, how much effort Netflix puts into what they produce, how much effort the media, generally the media machine, pushes into what it produces. I mean, look what's happening right now in Palestine and Gaza, and the way the media is spinning it. They have this whole machine that's working against us. And unfortunately, we do not have that kind of mindset to understand that that's where you should be putting your efforts into. You know, I'm not saying, this is also this spreads from news to storytelling. Storytelling is different from news. It's still propaganda. You're still pushing out a message there, but think about how many people, watch, like for example, Fox News. It's the most watched, at least it was at one time, the most watched news channel in America, right? And that fact might scare you if you compare it to how many people watched The Big Bang Theory, on US TV. It's like the numbers don't even compare. So I think we need to have that mindset where we invest in storytelling. And unfortunately, we don't have that mindset. We'll spend money on building a mosque. We'll spend money on measures, which is not bad things. But when it comes to spending money on documentaries and storytelling, we're not there. And it really upsets me because like there's some ideas that I have, some things I've wanted to do, but I just can't get the funding for it and I've realized that our community does not value that storytelling. Sunni communities are doing that. I have a lot of Muslim filmmakers who are working on a lot of projects that they're pushing out there to different platforms, and they still have challenges fundraising, but not like I do at all. And it's because our community does not value it.
Yeah.
And it's sad that I have to put myself in a position where I'm using my talent, my gear, which is very expensive, to do things. I'm not saying I'm doing this all the time, but to do things sometimes where it's like
shot on a phone.
No, it's not about being. But the thing is, it's not just about what you're shooting on. It's about like again approaching a project as a filmmaker, not as I've got an iPhone. I'm going to jump out there and just interview some people. And no, I'm telling a story. I want to make a narrative. Now, unfortunately, if I want to make a narrative, there's a few things I can do. One is I can fund it myself, or two, I can get a grant. I try and get a grant from like a filmmaking, cohort or someone who's giving out grants for films that is not within our community. And it's sad that we do not value that. And I'm saying that from my own experience. I'm saying that from, even though I'm very blessed to have a few clients in the Islamic community that I work with and do good work with, and they're great to work with. But generally, when it comes to storytelling and stories that I want to tell, real stories that I want to tell in our community. Prime example is I don't know if you saw the series I did, the Shi'i of America, a few years ago. So Shi'i of America was basically, for those who haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's basically covering the 100-year story of the history of the Shias in America, who, for those who don't know, came not recently, but as early as the late 1800s, early 1900s. And what I did basically was go to travel the whole country and find the grandchildren of those people that first came to ask them about how that community was in the 1900s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And the stories that I was uncovering were incredible. That story, that series was produced on a very, very low budget. And unfortunately, you can see that visually and aesthetically. And the feedback that whenever I get feedback for it, I'm always like, yeah, but this is how much it costs to make. Like, okay, now I understand why it costs so much to make. I can understand how you were so kind of like your hands were tied. And I always think if I did that on a proper budget, what would it look like? Put that aside. That was a very impactful series. Anyone who saw it was like, wow, I couldn't believe this is part of our history. I'm so glad that history has been preserved now. I'm so glad that history has been preserved for anyone to see. What about that story? This story, there's a story over there. There's so many stories that I want to cover, but funding can't find it. And people don't understand that, anyone else who wants to produce a documentary costs about between 60 and 100K to make a documentary, like an actual documentary that you see on Netflix or whatnot. At the low end, 60 to 100K on the low end, to make an actual documentary, to make a film, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, to make a narrative film, right? Yeah. Again, we'll spend that money. It's not that we don't have the money. We'll spend it on mosques. We'll spend it on, no offense, new AV systems and whatnot. Yeah. But that stuff is good. But a story, preserving a story is almost important things you can do. Like I was speaking to someone, for example, who was in Intifada. We all know someone from Intifada. Incredible story. And that's been covered a few times. But I was thinking to myself, I was like, Allah was, when this person dies, his story will die with it. Yeah. Because it hasn't been documented. And you can document it in the book. But you can also document it on film, in narrative. And I think that's just like, I don't see anything more valuable than preserving our stories. And for me, maybe it's just the way I view things, and it's hard for me to kind of communicate why that's important to others. But I feel very not disappointed or disenfranchised. 'Cause I want to maintain a positive mindset, but I think it's sad, man. I think it's sad that our community doesn't value stories as much as they should. Like, we are producing good stuff, Hamza. We have your Islamic content out there, but it's also very theological. It's very historical. It's related to Ahl Bayt. I'm talking about stories of our community. You know, like you have, for example, I don't want to give. I'm hesitant in giving examples because, you know, but I'm sure you know 10 people with amazing stories.
Yeah.
You know, imagine those stories were covered in the right way. And it's kind of sad that we don't invest time and money into that.
Santum. Speaking about more of your work, and I don't, following off the back of that, maybe this work was not as engaging or exciting for you, but like looked like it was. Like you went to the Vatican and
Oh no, it was no.
and you're filming there.
Like I said, there are a few clients that I work with that I'm very lucky to work with. I think, you know, Tesneem was definitely one of them,
So
alhamdulillah.
yeah, how was that experience? Like just
It was wonderful. Yeah, it was beautiful. So we did a documentary about Prophet Abbas alayhi salam,
Yeah.
and the idea was to kind of like just cover his life story. And alhamdulillah, you know, it was good. We got to film in the shrine of Abbas. You know, I'm
Yeah.
very lucky to, through the work that I've done.
And that's also something really difficult, by the way, just filming in the shrine.
Alhamdulillah, you know, through the work that I've done, I've even filmed in the Hadra of Mount Hussein, like not the shrine, the Hadra itself.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky, alhamdulillah. On the
Yeah,
roof, I
you're
filmed,
blessed.
like I filmed a lot inside both shrines.
All right, I need your connections.
It was honestly years of connections that kind of transpired in the right way. But you know, it was alhamdulillah, it was a great documentary, very impactful. We went to the Vatican to film as well, which I can talk to you about. But again, I think it's like, it's so refreshing to see people watch that and be like, oh, this was like, they use the word cinematic, it was so impactful and whatnot, and alhamdulillah it is. But in my brain, I'm still kind of comparing it to what I see on Netflix. I'm just like, yeah, but imagine what it could be done with that budget. You know, it's like, imagine what could be done, you know, if we approached it from that kind of mindset. And I'm not taking away from the actual documentary itself. It was again very impactful, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just not a perfectionist, but maybe I'm just trying to think about the best case scenario for this stuff. And again, I have a curse, which is that I spend my time watching movies, watching documentaries, watching stuff on streaming. So I see where they're working, and we're kind of working.
Yeah, and you're
here.
always trying to get there.
Yeah, and I'm trying to give the impression of being here while working here, which is what I've become, I think, very good at. Like with the Abbas documentary is a prime example. There's a few things that I do with the editing, with the music, try and give the impression that we're here, but we're still not kind of there, you know. And again, I think this is not specific to them because they're great to work with, but I'm talking about like other stories and other stories that I want to tell. It's just like, imagine that same craft, you've seen it. Imagine that, but with any other story in our community.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it that way. You know, there's this one documentary that I'll show you, the one I did. I really had to just did this for this one. I don't know if you heard the a few years ago there was some Shias that got killed in New Mexico, Albuquerque. Yes. So most people haven't heard this, and this is what kind of upsets me. So a few years ago, I think it was 20.
But to be fair, I've only heard about this from you.
Really?
You told me this story before.
Okay, so 2020 Muharram 2022.
Yeah.
There was a guy who was upset that his daughter was marrying a Shia, Sunni guy. So what he did was he hunted and executed 4 Muslims, 3 of which were Shia, 1 was Sunni. He thought the fourth one was Shia. First time in American soil, like sectarian violence.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the worst attacks in any Islamic community in the history of America, if I'm not mistaken. And when it happened, like there was condemnation. Sunni imams got together. It was nice. Like people condemned it. There was like a gathering, and everyone went to the mosque to kind of, you know. But after that, it just kind of like died out.
Yeah.
The story is gone. And like for like a year or two, I was really trying to get the funding to go there and document it. Like I don't want to just hit. I don't want to see an article about this. I want to go there. I want to interview the families. I want to interview the mosque. I want to interview Sunni and Shia imams across the country to discuss this and sectarianism generally, and basically create the narrative that this happened. We don't want it to happen again, and we as Muslims in America are against this idea of sectarianism in America, right? Getting the funding was just like it was. I'm not blaming any organizations because I approached a few, but it's like, you know, we don't. I don't know. For me, it's like it's a no-brainer. It's like that should be documented. That should be something, you know, that should be something preserved. That story, because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But because it's not preserved, it's gone now. It's gone. And and I have so many like that which I want to cover. But again, it's just like it's hard to it's hard to get the funding. And look, I think a lot of this is also Allah's kind of will. You know, perhaps there's some things He doesn't want to be created. You know, like I said before, a lot of it is tawfiq. And I'm very lucky that I do work in commercial spaces, and I have work coming in. So it's not like I need work, alhamdulillah. But it's just like I want to take those talents and do stuff like this.
Yeah, because you see something that you see the story and you feel like the story has been oppressed. Like that story needs
Yes.
to be light shown.
And not just that, but it's a story. It's our story. It's our community, right? And that deserves. I don't. Why am I watching another Netflix documentary series about Kobe Bryant or
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, it's like okay, fine, but I want to know. How about our stories? Do they not matter? Do our stories not matter? No, of course they matter. Of course they do. And I don't see the. It's difficult because everyone's donating to something, and organization has specific funding, and I get it.
It has to. Basically, they feel like it has to do something for them. Like,
yeah, I've seen that before. I think again, but it's just like for me, it's a no-brainer, and it's frustrating to me that I can't communicate to someone why this is so important, and maybe they just don't see it the same way I do. But like I said, like Shi'i of America, if I wasn't blessed with covering that, there's a book on it, which was a great book, but you can't feel that book, you can't experience it, you can't see people talking about it.
it's different.
I can moan about this forever, but like I really feel like we should do more when it comes to storytelling, and we should have more. We should value storytelling more, because for me it's the most important thing. And again, if you don't believe it's the most important thing, just look at what Hollywood's doing. Look at what Netflix is doing. Why are they putting so much money into this stuff? Why? Of course it makes money, but there's also an element of no, we need to tell. We choose the stories that people, until recently, Muslims were vilified in the media, in film and in TV for decades. Why? Because it allows people, because they understand the power of it. If we vilify Muslims in the media, we can wage wars in the Middle East. And think about how they understand how powerful it is to do that. We need to be doing the same thing.
Exactly.
We really do.
So that, like, when you're on Twitter, the hashtags, it's about who can pump out more. Like, and I know in terms of the gear and whatnot, we share some of those same concerns. Like, why are you doing this? Why do you spend money on getting this and making it?
Oh, you face that too?
Media production. And like, you're always gonna face it because the older generation kind of don't see that. They don't realize that pushing out more content for the Shia world is important.
If you don't push out. I mean, there's a few words for it. Content is one, which I can have a whole discussion about as well.
Oh yeah.
But if you don't push out your story, you don't exist. Beyond your four walls, and that's fine. That's not a bad thing, because you're also meant to focus on your community. But like, it depends what's your goal. How far do you want to take the message of Imam Hussein? And the message of Imam Hussein is not just as simple as showing the dome and showing a majlis all the time. It's also about telling our stories, because our stories are connected to Ahlul Bayt. Right, I think that's very important.
Yeah, I know Muhammad in the back is he's having the same kind of like struggles that you have as an aspiring filmmaker. He just recorded his first documentary for Arba'in.
Nice.
And again, there's some people that just kind of don't see the value. But if these stories aren't documented, then it's lost, and that story, that idea, that it's just buried.
Yeah, but
it's buried in its place.
It's also about sharing your stories. It's not just about documenting stories. It's like I always like you have your Islamic channels which are doing good work, and you have your, for example, what you guys do, podcasts and whatnot. That stuff is all good. But my point is also, like, when I say we share our stories, let me see a film about us. I don't mean a film like that's very overtly it's set in a majlis or it's set in Kaaba. No, like,
of course.
Like this is what we experience. I want to push out a story that teaches you about self-forgiveness or patience or whatever it is, or forgiving your parents, or what it could be, some sort of whatever deep theme, but it features us in that story. Us as in people from our community.
Down to earth.
Yeah,
Shia in the community.
People from people from our community, and there's that is non-existent. Non-existent. Why am I watching shows on HBO about teens who are doing God knows what in high school and stuff? Why is that stuff going to getting the Emmys and getting all the praise and stuff? Are we not capable of creating the same thing without that debauchery? No, of course we are. We can do that stuff.
No, unfortunately, it's even worse now that anytime there's any Muslim coverage in the media, it's like always negative. The girl takes off her hijab and she's
We-
free.
we-
Like
yeah,
any
we-
of those films or stories,
exactly.
it's like,
We're not humanized, and the onus
Yeah.
is upon us to humanize ourselves.
or this recent Netflix film last year or show. I actually just canceled Netflix because of it. It's like
Which one was it?
it was I don't know the name, but it was something about it was just a clip I saw and I literally canceled.
Oh, the
it.
Persian one in the
The
car.
Persian one in
Yeah,
the
I
car
saw
about
that.
Imam
Yeah,
Mahdi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw
But
that.
again, that exists because those Persians
Yeah.
have spent the time and effort to get into that industry. I'm not saying we also need to get into that industry, but we need to create alternatives. If you don't create
Yeah.
alternative, you don't share your story and push it out there, and don't think people won't appreciate our stories because, creating good stories is the path to others. They can be like, oh, okay, wow. Like, there's a few shows, I won't mention names, mainstream shows that feature Muslim characters, and you have big Hollywood actors that are like, oh, I like that show. Like, I didn't realize this is how Muslims are.
Yeah.
So it shows you how impactful and powerful storytelling can be. But again, I don't think we value it as much as we should.
I sent him. Now, just because we're running out of time a bit, just want
We
to
spent 20 minutes speaking about Will Basim. That's the problem.
20 minutes on Wanda Basim and 20 minutes on filmmaking. It's pretty much an episode. But I just want to ask, just in a more lighthearted way, about your thoughts about, since we've been talking about gear, access to gear, everyone is becoming a podcast bro or a content bro or a film bro or a real bro. Everyone's a TikTok star, And now that you spoke about telling a real story, I actually do see kind of the issue with that, and that there's so many that are, they got a camera and they're filming themselves, whatever, but they're not actually telling a story. You know what I mean? Like it's just like kind of they're making content for the sake of content.
Yeah.
Maybe we're a victim of that too.
Yeah.
I
I think that's also the danger of the world we're living is that everything's about content rather than storytelling. I think content is even if you look at, for example, the kind of things that Netflix is putting their money into, they're putting their money into films that you can watch while you're on your phone. That's why all these films are just like mindless, brainless.
There's no substance.
Yeah, because it's like they don't want to make films of substance because they want you to watch it in passing because it gets their view count up.
Yeah, they want you to spend as much time as possible
Exactly.
on the app.
Same thing with Instagram. Like the more content you make, the more
they call it brain rot now.
There you go.
It's in the name, and they're like the brain rot.
Yeah. The more your engagement goes up, and the thing is, for me, again, it's like I really want to be mindful about not falling into that trap of creating content for the sake of creating content, which is why I always tell my close friends, I was like, I can post a poem a day about the Ahl Bayt on Instagram, and I would probably see my numbers triple what they are now.
Yeah.
But that's not as beautiful as that is. It's not encompassing of who I am and the story that I want to tell. Because as much as important as it is for me to share poetry about the Ahl Bayt, it's also important to me to share stories about myself, my community, my upbringing, through poetry, through storytelling, through filmmaking as well.
And you should make sure every post has a real purpose and impact.
It
shouldn't just be
exactly.
All right, gotta get it done.
Like
The
point
have a goal and a purpose.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that
yeah.
if I want to get my numbers up, it's not difficult. There's ways you can maneuver the algorithm and do that. But that's not my goal. My goal is to tell real, authentic stories and have an intentionality of storytelling in everything that I produce. So podcasts are great, but what's the purpose of it? What are you sharing? Why are you sharing it? What are you trying to cover? What's your goal? I think the reason there are so many podcasts is because people have an appetite for it.
People like listening to podcasts because it's like, it's basically a place radio, right? It's something you can listen to on the go and something you can hear and benefit from. So it is important. But again, the question that we should ask ourselves is, what is the intentionality behind what we're creating? Right now you are telling the story of your community. That's your goal. It's a beautiful goal. You want to, I don't know what your philosophy here.
This requires some introspection. I need to think about this more.
I think it's something like we live in such an age where we are bombarded with content that is disgusting and that is designed to rot our brains and reach into our innermost devilish desires, and that's what's there for, to keep us away from things that matter, like reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even if at the very least you're utilizing your platform, which is you have speakers coming in, reciters coming in, whoever, and you want to poke them to create content that is intentionally taking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you are offering something toward the world. And it could be seeing something obligatory, which you have to do. You know, because the way the world is, because the world needs Allah, and the world needs the teachers of the Ahlul Bayt. Our job is to get that message out there as much as possible.
And the question that each of us have to ask ourselves is, how can we do that with what we have? You have podcast room, you have speakers coming in, so you're utilizing that to reach that goal, which I think is a beautiful thing.
I sent him. Thank you so much. And I believe we are at time, but I just want to say, like, thank you so much, of course, for attending. I also appreciate all your wise words. Believe it or not, I did learn a lot, and now I have to think about the intentionality behind some of the stuff we post. So it was insightful for us who are kind of just getting into like the media production area.
No, but it's good, mashallah. Like I think don't underestimate what you're doing. You know, I'll share with you this one story, which I hate this story so much, but it's a lesson for myself. I remember once I was invited to recite at an event, and when we got there, there was like two people in the event, and there was two sisters in the back, which I saw. And the guy said, "Do you want to?" This is like 10 years ago, and the brother said, "Do you want to recite?" I said no. I didn't mean no because that's not good enough for me. I meant no because why? In my brain, I was like, why would I bore you, this brother, and the two sisters who I'm assuming that related to you with my poetry? You obviously don't want to hear it, so just go straight to the lecture. When I went home, I got a message from one of the sisters who said, "Brother, we drove 2 hours from Birmingham to hear you recite. And you didn't recite." So it's like you don't know how impactful what you're doing is sometimes, and we forget that. You know, a speaker shared a great story with me as well. He was like quite similar. He's like, he used to drive 2 hours to this channel to give a lecture every week or do a show, whatever. And there was one week where he was never getting any feedback. Like I'm not sure what the issue was. I think it was low numbers, or he didn't know how many people were watching, or whatever it was. And there was one week where
it was a lot of traffic. It was difficult to get there. So I'm not coming. Cancel it. I'll resume next week. And similarly, that week he got a message saying, "Say, we wait for your lecture every single week, and you didn't come to like, what's going on." So the point being is that even if your numbers are low, that's not the goal. The goal is how many people you impacting. And point being is don't underestimate how many people you are impacting, and you are changing.
Sense of
Keep that in mind.
Thank you so much. There are a few people actually who drove from really far away for our Haram program, and that was actually just a moment, just a light bulb moment for us. Like someone said, "Yeah, I drove hours to get here." Wow. Like some person came from northern Ontario, like literally drove 10 hours.
Wow.
And came down. It's like his first time he comes here. He's like, "Yes, I heard about you and I saw you guys or something."
Wow.
They came by, and he's like, he doesn't have any Shi'a centers there, of course. So it was just, that was like, and just someone that was coming from 2 hours away every night. There are a few of these moments. So alhamdulillah for the blessing to have an impact on.
And again, a lot of that is tawfiq. Like some people try. Some people try to make programs, or try to recite poetry, or try to give lectures, or recite like this, but just don't get the tawfiq.
Yeah.
I think that is a big blessing, a huge blessing as well. Something I feel more grateful for, 100%.
You know, I always say that the more it's so strange for me because sometimes I write stuff and I share it, and I just, with me, it's like I've written it, I've experienced it in the moment, and I've shared it, and it's gone now. Like I don't think about it again too much, but I don't realize that that poem's gone to someone and it's impacted them in a way that, again, maybe I haven't intended, but it's moved them like in a beautiful way. And they might come to me like 8 years later, brother, that poem like really moved me. I'm like, which poem? Like I don't even remember. I'll give you like one example. Last year I was going through a really tough time, so I wrote this poem about Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, and the whole idea behind the poem was like, she is our mother and she looks after us. And it was a really emotional poem for me to write. I wrote it and I put it on Instagram, and I kind of thought about it. I got a message from a sister who said, "Salam brother," she's like, me and my father were very close to Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam, very close. Then my father passed away. Ever since he passed away, I never felt any connection to Fatima Zahra. Like my connection wasn't as strong until I read that poem. And now that I have that poem, I screenshotted it. I read it every single day to strengthen my again. Like that is like, that's not something I intended. I didn't write that thinking that would happen, but by putting that out there and hoping that I might help someone, you know, clearly, and the sister, if she's watching, sorry, I didn't reply, but I have that screenshot of that message, and I still like see it from time to time, and it really like it really moves me. You don't know how far your work is gonna go, and you don't know who it's gonna impact, and you don't need 1 billion followers on Instagram for that to happen. You might just have, you know, one person that loves what you do, that their life has changed because of something you've said or produced or whatever it is. You know, you don't know how far your work is gonna go, so you just pray. And, you know, as I do whenever I go to ziyarah, I always ask Imam Hussein, I say, look, I want my work to go far. I want more tawfiq to serve. And that's my main dua when I go to ziyarah these days. I just came back from Arba'in, I was there in Muharram as well. I said, look, I have removed myself from needing anything outside of what you want for me. Ani bil khidmah. Ani khadim. I'm your slave.
Yeah.
You tell me what you want. That's the only thing I want from you. I say, just let me understand. I can't speak to you physically. I know you can hear me. Can I hear you? Sometimes I believe I can. I don't know if I actually can. I want you to show me what to do. Push me in the right direction. Wherever you want me to go, whatever it is. I don't care what it is. If you want me to stop writing today and do something else, I'll do it. Because I'm not here for myself. I'm here for you, like, selflessly. That's what I aim to do. So you tell me what to do, and I make a service. I think that's the main message, like, the main intention we should have in our mind is that we are serving his cause. My morning tonight is about Abdullah. Everything I do is from Hussein. Honestly, I'm not like saying that I'm being honest with you. Everything I do is from Hussein. It might not always show. You might see, for example, me writing a story or me making a film or working on a commercial or doing whatever it is, or just, you know, whatever I'm doing in life. I always have Imam Hussein in the back of my mind. I always have his pleasure and I think about him 24/7, because what I want is to be there for him when I couldn't be there for him that day. I can't physically, none of us can go back that day and help him, but I'm here now. I'm here now. And you know, when I'm gone, whatever age it is I die, a few years afterwards, maybe longer, who knows, but we'll become dust eventually. There'll be new people that will come to serve him. And we just become part of this, you know, this whirlwind that surrounds his grave and does the work around his grave. And that's all I want to become. Just that piece of dust that might take his message in the right way. Inshallah. And hopefully we can all become that.
أحسنتم إن شاء الله. الشاعر الحسيني Nouri Sardar. No, I mean that in and of itself is an amazing laqab, just to be Khadim al-Hussein.
Inshallah, hopefully.
Inshallah.
Hopefully we can.
Thank you so
reach that
much for
level.
your wise words, for everything that you've shared with us today. You got a bit
Deep and personal like that. And you know what? We're trying to tell a story.
Alhamdulillah.
Makes sense.
Let's tell stories.
Thank you so much. Inshallah, we'll see you again on the set sometime. But in a few hours, we're gonna be hearing some of your poetry live.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.